Hello everyone, I'm back with another video for you, and today we're going to take another step forward in our little unit here on adding fractions and integers. So the previous couple days we worked on adding fractions when they contained integers, then we moved to subtracting. So today we are working on mixed numbers and how to add or subtract a mixed number when it contains an integer. So you're going to see a slightly different procedure here for today, but we're just sort of taking the next step forward in this. Okay, so let's take a look at a problem here. So the problem you're seeing says negative 3/6 minus 2/6. And this is the type of problems that we have worked on for the past couple of days, where we started out working them that had a common denominator. And then we moved when it did not have a common denominator. So let's start with this one today, but what we're going to do is we're going to add whole numbers to this. So instead of 3/6, I am going to make this 2 3/6, negative 2 3/6, and I'm going to add a whole number to this one. So it is 1 2/6. Okay? Now, this one, as you can see, already has a common denominator, so we don't need to find one. But when we do problems like this, at times we run into a problem that we can't subtract and we're going to need to borrow. And that borrowing causes an additional step. So I'm going to show you what is a consistent way to do these problems. And it is that after you have your common denominator, we need to turn them improper. Okay? So we need to make negative 2 3/6 an improper fraction. So remember, 6 times 2 would be 12, plus our 3, I get 15/6. And I'm going to bring my negative sign with me. Okay? And I need to make this one improper. So I have 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 would be 8/6. Okay, now it looks like it did yesterday, where we don't have whole numbers to worry about. So now we can just do our normal solving of this. Remember, denominator stays. This is a subtraction problem, so I need to do leave, change, and opposite. Look at our numerators here. So my problem is negative 15 minus 8. Leave this alone, change, opposite. So in this problem, I get negative 23/6, which again is improper. So we're going to change it. 6 can go into 23 3 times, which is 18. And you would have 5 left over. And again, bring our negative sign here. So my answer is negative 3 5/6. This cannot be reduced. That's as low as it will go. Okay, so the difference between this and yesterday is that when we have a whole number, after you have a common denominator, we need to make it improper. That'll save us a lot of trouble down the road. Okay, let's look at one more that has like denominators before we move on. So this problem says 2 4/8 plus negative 3 6/8. So it's addition. The last one we worked on was subtraction. This one is addition. But if you look, we still have a common denominator. So we do not need to find one. Your first step will always be to check for a common denominator. And if you don't have one, find one. That's always the first thing. Okay? Second is once we do have that common denominator, now we're going to make our fractions improper. Okay? Because I would need to borrow in order to subtract here, because I have two different unlike signs. So I'm going to make this improper. 8 times 2 is 16 plus 4. I have 20 over 8 here. That's my improper fraction. Okay, let's make the second fraction improper. 8 times 3 is 24. 24 plus 6 is 30 over 8. And don't forget that this is negative to bring that negative sign with you. Okay, now that we've made it improper, we know what to do with this. Denominator stays. And my problem says 20 plus a negative 30, right? If you're looking at your numerators. So 2 different signs. So I subtract and I get 10. And I'm going to keep the sign of the larger number. So this one happens to be a negative 10/8. Okay, so improper, I need to change it. It changes to 1 2/8, which can be reduced, right? Even numbers, to 1 1/4. And then don't forget to bring the negative sign along with you. So my answer is negative 1 1/4 for this one. Okay, so again, once you have a common denominator, make it improper, and then from there, it's just like we have been doing. Okay, so let's move on and try a couple that have unlike denominators. Okay, if we look at the problems on the page, this one says negative 1 2/3 plus 2 3/4. Okay, now we are moving on to unlike denominators. Okay, we can see one's a 3 and one's a 4. So our first step is still to find a common denominator. We've got to find something that works for both 3 and 4. And the smallest thing is 12. Okay, so I'm going to set them both equal to 12. And again, we need to change our numerator. So 3 times 4 is 12. If I multiply the top times 4, I get 8. Right? So 1 8/12. Bring down your negative sign also. If I go over here, 4 times 3 is 12, times 3 is 9. Bring my 2 along with me. Okay? Now, we have a common denominator. So our next step is to make everything improper, just like we did on the previous page. So let's move on to making it improper. 12 times 1 is 12, and then plus 8, this would be 20 over 12. Okay, and I'm going to bring my negative sign along with me. If I go to this one, 12 times 2 is 24. And then 24 plus 9 would be 33. Bottom number stays, right? Making it improper. And this one's positive, so I don't have a sign to bring along with me. Now it looks just like we've been doing, right? So we can solve this. Our denominator stays. And let's look at our numerators. It says negative 20 plus 33. Okay, I have 2 different signs, so I need to subtract. And if I subtract, I get a positive 13. So I don't have a sign to bring along, just a positive 13. Now, this is improper, so you should change that to 1 1/12. That cannot be reduced, and again, there's no sign to bring along because it's positive. Okay, so the only difference here right now is we find a common denominator first, then make it improper. Okay, let's look at one more, and this one will be subtraction. Okay, so we've got one last problem to look at, and this one also has unlike denominators. Our problem is negative 2 2/3 minus a negative 1 4/10. So we do not have the same denominator. So that is still our first step, is to find a common denominator. So for 3 and 10, I'd say our common denominator can be 30. So let's make both of these fractions out of 30 now. Okay? So 3 times 10 gives you 30. So if you multiply the top times 10, you get 20. And we're going to bring our whole number with us. Right? We go over to this one, 10 times 3 is 30. So if you multiply the top times 3, you get 12. And I'm going to, again, bring the whole number with me. Bring the sign with me. And it is subtraction. Okay, so your first step is the common denominator. Second step is let's make them improper. Okay, so let's start over here on the left. 30 times 2 is 60, and 60 plus 2 is 80. So this is a pretty big number, but that's 80 over 30. And again, bring your sign with you. Little details here. Bring this with me. All right, so I'm subtracting. And let's look at the next one. So 30 times 1 is 30, and then plus 12. So this is going to be 42 over 30. And again, I need to bring the sign with me, so it's negative. All right, so we've done our first two steps of finding a common denominator and then making them improper. Now we're ready to solve. All right, so our denominator stays, so I'm just going to put 30 on the bottom here. And now we've got to work out our numerator. So let's circle them here. Negative 80 minus a negative 42. Okay, so remember, this is subtraction. So you need to do leave, change, opposite. So the problem is negative 80 plus a positive 42. Which means you have two different signs here. So I need to subtract. So 80 minus 42 would be 38. Bring the sign with me. Right, take the sign of the larger number, I guess I should say. This one's larger, so I'm going to bring its sign. So far I have a negative 38 over 30, which is improper. So I change, and it becomes 1 and 8 over 30. Bring your sign with me, so it is still negative. And I need to reduce this. I can divide both of these by 2, right? I'm going to put my answer above here. I'm sort of out of room. So I have 1, and if I divide by 2, I get 4/15. And I bring the negative sign with me. So negative 1 4/15 should be your final answer here. Okay? So anytime you see a fraction that has a whole number, what we call mixed numbers, your first step is to determine, do I have a common denominator or not? If so, you're good to go. If not, you need to find one. So your first step is getting a common denominator. Then make them improper. And from there, you do adding and subtracting just like we've done for the past couple of days. Okay, so not a whole lot of big changes. The one thing that's slightly different is making them improper. Okay, so you do have some work to do on Schoology. Practice a little bit of this, hoping it goes well. Please message me if you have questions, and I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Okay, good luck, guys, and have a great afternoon.